People are standing around or sitting around waiting for Priam to come out. Now we return to Troy, still book 3. Inside Troy, Aphrodite goes to Helen. Helen is in her room weaving, as she's always weaving. The women are always weaving. And Aphrodite says, she is in human form, come to the walls and see your husband and your lover fight. Wow, then maybe I can go home. Because Helen is kind of ready to go home. She kind of likes the life in Troy, but kind of wants to see her daughter, Hermione, and return to Sparta, her home. Okay, so she comes out to the Trojan walls. Wonderful scene. Sitting on top of the Trojan walls are Priam and the other leaders of Troy, old men especially, and they're watching. Helen comes out. Now the old men, before Helen arrives, are talking about the war, of course, and they're thinking and saying, oh, I wish we could stop this war. What are we fighting over? We're fighting over Helen? That's ridiculous. Let's get rid of Helen. Let's just send her back. Helen appears, and these old men stand or sit with their jaws open, staring at her beauty. And it's as if that convinces us, and this is how Homer works, that convinces us much more than words can convince us of the effect of Helen's beauty on people. These men all shut up. Just stop talking. Priam calls her to him, and it's a great scene because we meet Priam and we realize what a great man he is. And his greatness will be reestablished finally in book 24 at the end. Absolutely great. He's a kind man who I think has deep understanding. He knows that the war is not really Helen's fault. It's not Paris's fault. The causes go deep. And if you like, the cause lies with the gods. But it goes deeper even than that, probably. And I think Priam understands that. He calls Helen to her, and he holds her hand and says, I know that you're not at fault here. Look out on the field there and tell me who some of these Greek warriors are. Now, it's kind of absurd to imagine that after 10 years of fighting, Priam doesn't know who Agamemnon is. That's absurd. Maybe, though, Priam is just trying to distract people from the discussion of the war and get Helen to talk. And this is possible. I never thought of this, but that's the way Homer works. Homer is remarkable. Who's that kind of tall guy with the broad shoulders who seems to be in charge? Oh, that's Agamemnon. Okay, and we hear a little about Agamemnon. Then Antenor, another of the Trojan elders, says, who's that other guy, much shorter, but with the huge shoulders and impressive guy? That's Odysseus. And Antenor says, I want to tell you this story now, because you'll hear so much about Odysseus later. Yes, I remember before the war began, Meneleus and Odysseus came to Troy to try to see if we could avoid the war. And they spoke. Menelaus spoke first. These are aristocrats. You must know that word. That is, they are aristocrats, well educated by the standards of the time. So Menelaus spoke in the textbook fashion exactly as he was taught to speak. Spoke well, but he certainly did not touch any hearts, or minds even. Then Odysseus spoke. Odysseus stared at the ground, as people are not supposed to. A good speaker should look at his audience, as I don't much myself. But that's okay. Odysseus spoke looking at the ground, and he spoke in one tone. But when he spoke, it was like snowflakes falling to the ground. Silent, but so impressive. Everything beautiful and in place. It's one of the great Homeric similes. A simile, a comparison using like or as. Odysseus' words falling like snowflakes on the ground. Wow. And no one, frankly, I think no one knows what it means. But everyone knows that it has deep meaning. Homer's like that. Okay. So, Then we finish with that. A messenger comes to Troy saying, Priam, please come out and sign the treaty, the truce, the agreement. Priam goes out by chariot. He and Agamemnon agree that winner take all, basically. Priam leaves. The fighting is ready to begin. In Book 4, at the beginning of Book 4, actually I'm not sure. I guess still Book 3. Menelaus versus Paris. The fighting starts. They draw a big circle. One of them throws the spear first. The other will throw a spear, and then they charge. Paris throws first. Not surprisingly, he's probably very nervous. His spear hits Menelaus' shield. Does no damage at all. Menelaus then throws. He's an angry man. Spear goes right through the shield of Paris, but Paris moves and avoids damage. Then they charge using their swords and shields. Menelaus is an angry man, and he's a much better fighter than Paris anyway. Very quickly, Paris is losing. Then, suddenly Menelaus is dragging Paris by the helmet, strap under here, by the helmet, dragging him to the Greek side. Aphrodite, who after all loves Paris chose her, right? Aphrodite loves the Trojans, of course. Aphrodite comes down, Homer says, breaks the chin strap, and suddenly Menelaus is holding a helmet, but no Paris. He throws the helmet into the Greek camp, he wants to keep that, and turns around and looks for Paris. Meanwhile, Aphrodite has taken Paris up in a mist, hidden, taken him up and takes him to Troy and puts him in his bedroom. The Greeks and the Trojans are all wondering, what's going on here? Where's Paris? Did Menelaus win? Is the war over? Puzzle. They're puzzled. Bewilderment. No one knows what's happening or what should happen. Is the war over? Meanwhile, Paris is in his bedroom, taken there by Aphrodite. Great scene. Helen is there, and Paris says, come to bed with me. He's a defeated man who has just been humiliated, and he wants to recapture some of his self-respect with his woman, I think. Very interesting. This is an adult point of view for you children, but you can understand it. He's been humiliated and embarrassed. Helen is angry at him. You coward. Why have I spent 10 years with such a coward? Why did I leave Sparta to come to Troy with you? Oh, please. Oh, I left something out. I have to go back. Sorry. Helen was still on the wall, looking at the battle, so she saw the fighting. She's disgusted when Paris disappeared. Aphrodite comes to her on the wall. I'm sorry. You'll understand, though. Aphrodite comes to her on the wall and says, come to your bedroom. Come and see your husband. He's waiting for you. Helen is angry at Aphrodite and says, where will you leave me now? You have caused me nothing but embarrassment. The whole world blames me for this war. I hate you. No, I will not go to Paris in the bedroom. Aphrodite then says, you don't want to make me angry. If you make me angry, I will hate you, and I will hurt you so badly. And Helen realizes she's right. So Helen goes back to the bedroom, says some bad things to Paris, as I said before, but then goes to bed with him. Helen is a deep character. We'll deal with that some other time. Book 4. Everyone standing around out on the battlefield. Athena goes to Pandarus. Pandarus is a Trojan ally. He came to Troy without his sword and spear. He came with his bow and arrows. He wanted to win glory. They all want to win glory. But he brought his bow and arrows, and he's a good archer. Like Koreans are good archers. Olympics. Okay, Athena goes to him and says, Pandarus, you can win great glory now. Everyone is standing around. Shoot an arrow at Meneleus, standing around over there on the Greek side. Kill him, and you will win great glory. Ooh, good idea. So his men stand up and create a kind of shield for him, and he, behind, draws his arrow and shoots at Menelaus. He's a very good shot, but Homer says Athena moves the arrow a little bit. He hits Menelaus, but just in the side, below the ribs there. No great wound, but it's enough to cause a lot of bleeding. Agamemnon sees that his brother Menelaus has been hit, and fears that he's been mortally wounded, killed. And he delivers a great little speech that tells a lot about him. He says, "Oh, my brother, I can't stand to lose you. This is terrible." But if we're thinking, we realize he loves his brother, yes. But if Menelaus dies, no more war. If no more war, no great glory for Agamemnon. Not only that, but no more war, and Agamemnon goes home to the welcome that he knows he must expect from his wife after the killing of his daughter. All of this is going on in Agamemnon's head too, and if we think about it, we know it. And Homer certainly knows it. And so Menelaus says, no, I'm okay. It's just a slight wound. And Agamemnon is relieved, but we can imagine how relieved he is, because his world almost collapsed there. But the moment is very emotional for him, and he says, "Now I know, and I know deeply, that Troy must fall." This breaking of the truce by the shooting of Menelaus was a terrible thing, after all, a cowardly, dishonorable act. And Agamemnon says, "Now I know, deep in my heart, that Troy must fall. Troy will fall." And when Homer makes Agamemnon say that, we know it's true. He's speaking from a level of knowledge that is so deep that there can be no doubt about it. He's speaking almost in a mystical sense. His knowledge comes from depths that neither he nor anyone understands. And we know he's speaking the truth. He speaks with such authority. Okay, now the fighting will begin again. Both sides line up again, and at the end of Book 4, the fighting really begins. Book 5, easily dealt with. Diomedes basically kills a lot of Trojans. Zeus is keeping his promise. The Trojans seem to be winning, but Homer can't let the Trojans win, and he certainly can't let any Greek heroes win. So Diomedes is inspired by Athena and Hera. You see the picture. Zeus is keeping his promise. He's inspiring Trojans. But Hera and Athena are secretly helping the Greeks. So the battle goes back and forth, back and forth. Books 5 and 6, this is true. In Book 7, oh no, I've got to tell you about 6. 6 is one of the most beautiful. At the beginning of Book 6, one of the Trojan prophets is a brother of Hector, the greatest of the Trojan fighters, son of Priam, brother of Paris. Got all that? Helenus, this prophet, says to Hector, "Hector, go back to the city. Tell our mother, Hecuba, and the Trojan women to take a gift to the statue of Athena, to try to persuade Athena to stop Diomedes, because Diomedes is killing so many of us. We will keep the Greeks at bay, as we say." Hector runs back to the city, and this leads to the great Book 6. Book 6 is great because we get a glimpse. We meet the Trojans. We met Priam before. Now we're going to meet the real Trojans. It's a beautiful book, but the real meaning is these people, these fine people, these lovable people, Hector, his wife Andromache, their little baby, these are excellent people, but they will die. Troy will fall. It's terrible that they're going to die. Do they deserve to die? Well, we'll get into that a little bit, but it's hard to believe they deserve to die. It's painful, though. Book 6 is deeply moving. Hector goes back to Troy, goes to his mother Hecuba, and asks her to gather the great Trojan women, take a gift to Athena, and pray to Athena to stop Diomedes from killing so many of them. Then Hector goes to find his wife. He goes to their apartment, let's say, in the palace. She's not there. She's out on the walls. Then he goes to find her on the walls. Of course, she had gone there because the fighting had started, and she's worried all the time about her husband. Hector goes and finds his wife Andromache. Andromache has a story of her own. Her father and 7 of her brothers were killed by Achilles. Her father and 7 of her brothers killed by Achilles. She has such fear of Achilles, the Greeks generally, but Achilles especially, that she can't get over it. And of course she can't. Who could? And so she's worried constantly that her husband, whom she loves very much, Hector, will try to fight Achilles. If he fights Achilles, she's sure that he can't beat Achilles. Hector himself is sure that he can't beat Achilles. So this is painful. When Achilles comes, she's so glad. When her husband Hector comes to see her there, she's so happy that it's a very touching moment. Hector speaks too. And in Hector's words we learn that Hector is aware that he is fighting a bad war for a bad reason. After all, why is he fighting? He's fighting because his brother Paris stole another man's wife, Helen, and that's why they're fighting? They're fighting so that Paris can keep Helen? This is a bad war for bad reasons. But in the end, he feels he has to fight to protect his homeland. This again raises the deep point, why don't they simply give Helen back? They can't. They just can't. And that's all. It's a terrible truth. And then Hector speaks powerful words to his wife, Andromache. He says, I think from the same deep level from which Agamemnon spoke in Book 4, he says, I know that one day Troy will fall. I think he knows it because he knows the war is wrong. And Troy is wrong. I know that Troy will fall. I know that Troy will be destroyed. I know that you, my wife, will be led away into slavery, and my little son, our little boy, 1 year old maybe, will either be killed or will be led into slavery himself, and I hope I'm dead that day. I could not stand to see it. He knows this just like Agamemnon knows it, and we know it too. Troy must be destroyed. But it's painful because these people whom we've met, most of them anyway, Priam, Andromache, Hector, the little baby, some others too, are great people, but they must die. Because, why? For the deep reasons that this war is being fought. Okay, then a very touching moment. Hector tries to reach out to hug his little baby boy. The boy screams because Hector is a scary guy. He's a warrior. There's blood on him probably. There's dark dirt and dust. And he's got that scary Greek helmet on. He's a scary guy. The baby screams. Mother and father laugh. It's another use of Homer's use of laughter to dissolve tension. Hector takes off his helmet, maybe washes his face briefly a little bit, maybe. Homer doesn't say. Then he hugs the little boy. It's a great moment, but it's sad too. Troy must fall. Then Hector knows he must go back to the battle. He goes looking for Paris, goes to Paris's room. Paris and Helen have finished with what they were doing, and Paris is sitting there polishing his armor. Hector becomes very angry at Paris. Men are out there dying, and you are in your bedroom with your beautiful wife polishing your armor. I'm ashamed of you. I wish that you had died 10 years ago. Paris says to Hector, "You're right. My brother, you're right. I'm sorry. Go to the wall, go to the gate, and I will catch up to you. I promise." Paris's way of dealing with criticism is to accept the criticism. And so what can Hector say? Can Hector just repeat what he just said? Why? Paris accepts his criticism, his insults even. There's nothing he can say. It's difficult to remain angry at Paris. He's charming, and he agrees with everything people say about him. Hector leaves. There's a special bond between Hector and Helen, who is very intelligent and a great woman, really. Hector leaves and walks toward the gate. Paris catches up to him, running, and they go out together, these two brothers, in this messy war, in this messy world. In Book 7, a brief one-on-one combat I won't tell you much about. Hector challenges a Greek to one-on-one combat. Not to finish the war, just to see who wins and exchange gifts. When Hector steps out between the two armies, the Trojans sit down. The Greeks continue to throw at his back. What is Homer saying to us? He's saying that they are frightened of Hector. Homer must make us see that the Greeks are afraid of Hector. Because if they're not afraid of Hector, why is this war continuing? Okay, finally Agamemnon says, "Men, stop throwing at Hector. Let's listen to Hector." Hector challenges them. The Greeks silence. Homer once again is trying to show us by actions, not by words, that the Greeks are a little afraid of Hector. They have to be afraid of Hector, or there's no dramatic tension here. Because the whole Iliad is heading toward a climax later, Book 22, the battle, the fight between Achilles and Hector. So Homer has to build up Hector as a fighter. Silence. Then Menelaus says, "I'll fight him, I'll fight him." And the other heroes say, "No, Menelaus, you're no match for Hector, but we'll all fight him." And then they all line up. Odysseus, Agamemnon himself, Diomedes, of course, and others, and especially Aias. Aias is, by reputation, the second greatest of the Greek fighters. He's a huge man, perhaps a little slow-moving, a good man, but a sad man, actually. Anyway, they draw lots, kind of like drawing straws, and Aias wins. All the Greeks had prayed that Aias would win because they think Aias can beat Hector, or at least Hector will not kill him. So then they have the combat. They fight for hours. Aias generally is winning. Hector is generally losing. But finally the heralds intervene and say, "Enough, darkness, no more fighting." The general feeling, though, is that if the fighting had continued, if sentence here, past situation, if the fighting had continued, Aias would have won. Anyway, they exchange gifts. Hector speaks very well. He's a gentleman. We love Hector from Book 6. We still love him in Book 7. In Book 8, nothing much happens. Book 9 is arguably the most important book in the Iliad. I think I can tell it in our 10 minutes, though. Now, the fighting is going very badly for the Greeks. Many Greeks are dying, many heroes even are wounded. Homer must let this happen. Agamemnon is in despair. He calls a little war council, as he did in Book 2, and he says, things are going very badly. I don't know what to do. And Nestor says, we all know what's happened here. We need Achilles. Agamemnon, you must apologize to Achilles and offer him gifts. Agamemnon knows that this is right, and he says, Nestor, I know you're right. I had the same idea. And I'm going to offer him, and he offers him this long list of things, lots of gold, lots of silver, chariots, horses, women, and just, as the cliche goes, a king's ransom. Vast the number of gifts that Agamemnon offers. And he sends two very great representatives. Odysseus will go, and Aias, the second great hero whom we just saw, will go to Agamemnon, to Achilles' tent, and with them, Phoenix. Now, Phoenix is a minor character, Phoenix. He's an old man who was like a father to Achilles. This is a good idea. Odysseus, the most intelligent, the most brilliant of the Greeks, a great speaker. Aias, the second best fighter, and a friend. They're all friends of Achilles, and they all respect him, and he respects them. And Phoenix, who is like a father figure to Achilles. The stage is set. They go to Achilles' tent. Achilles is playing on his lyre. He's a civilized man, an educated Greek. He's not only a fighter, but a musician. He sees these three great men, two are great men, coming, and he says, men, Patroclus, my friend, my love, almost. Patroclus is another story, but he's important. He's about 10 years older than Achilles, close friend, but a little like a father, a little like a friend. And when Achilles went to the war, he told his father, Peleus, told Patroclus to watch over Achilles, guide him, protect him if you can. So Patroclus is a major player here. Patroclus, let's prepare dinner for these great men who have come to visit us. And basically, Achilles we see as a gentleman, courteous, a gentleman. It's important that we realize that he's a gentleman, because what happens in the Iliad is that this gentleman becomes a savage. And that's what happens. So they prepare dinner quickly for them, they serve them before any speaking, and then tell me, why are you here? But really, everyone knows why they're there. Odysseus speaks first. He speaks brilliantly, and he gives reasons why Achilles should join them again. Things are going very badly. Some of us are hurt. We're all your friends. Help us. Agamemnon offers you all these gifts. And the list is so tremendous. On the list, of course, is return of Briseis, the girl whom he took from Achilles, and he swears that he never touched her, and he didn't. Everyone believes him. So the point is that for Achilles to refuse this offer is unreasonable. Everyone, every human being has to admit that this offer is irresistible. That for Achilles to refuse the offer is, in short, it will put Achilles in the wrong. Achilles maybe has been in the right so far, but if he refuses this offer, he will be in the wrong. And it's very important to see it that way. Achilles says, I'm sorry, I can't accept it. I can't get over my anger at Agamemnon. We remember that it's not really Agamemnon that he's angry at. He's angry at many things, just Agamemnon superficially. But Achilles doesn't understand that, or refuses to understand that. Always a fine line in us human beings. Okay. No. In fact, I'm thinking about going home tomorrow, and I'm going to go back to my father and spend the rest of my days there. Maybe I'm going to do that. Then Aias speaks. Aias speaks from the heart. He says, we're your friends. Don't abandon us. Even if you are angry at Agamemnon, don't abandon us. And Achilles refuses again. Now he's even more in the wrong, more deeply the wrong in this terrible conflict. He is terribly wrong. And he even says at one point, I know that I should relent. I know that I should accept these gifts and return to the fighting. But I just can't. My anger is too big. It masters my heart. Well, this is a terrible thing. A great man, whom we, readers of the Iliad for the first time, only dimly realize the greatness of. Later we will, though, in Book 24. But even now, we know that this is a great man, mastered by this terrible passion. And we know that this passion goes very deep, and he doesn't understand it himself. He even knows, though, that he's in the wrong. Then Phoenix speaks, like a father, weeping, weeps to him, appeals even more to his emotions. And still, Achilles refuses. And he says, again, maybe I'll go home tomorrow, maybe I won't. Really, Achilles' speech, if you analyze it, speeches, if one analyzes them, are not logical at all. They are dominated by emotion, by unclear thinking. The man is not thinking clearly. He's confused. It's terrible, but he's certainly in the wrong. Then the three men get up and leave. They return to Agamemnon and the other chiefs. They report to him what happened, and Agamemnon, the leader, is now really in despair. And he says, I think we ought to go home. Diomedes, the youngest of them, the most spirited of them, a powerful warrior, and an aspiring guy, says, okay, you guys go home, but I will stay here. I would stay here even if only I and my friend were to stay here. I will not leave until we destroy Troy, or I'm dead. The others, Agamemnon especially, are so impressed by Diomedes' words, and he means it too. Okay, we will continue with the Iliad. In our previous installation, we covered some background in books 1 through 9. 9, a climax, an initial climax of the Iliad. Today I think we'll be able to finish the rest. That is through book 24. Okay, in book 9, just to remind you a little bit, the embassy, as it was called, to Achilles failed. Odysseus, Aias, Ajax, and Phoenix had gone to Achilles on behalf of Agamemnon to ask him to return to the fighting, bring his men to the Myrmidons. He had refused. Okay, in Book 10, and at the end of Book 9, Diomedes had angrily said that he would stay, he and his friend, even if everyone else left, because Agamemnon was disheartened. In Book 10, during the night even, Agamemnon is restless. Nestor is restless too. They're all kind of restless, the leaders of the Greeks. And finally, I think it's Meneleus who wakes them up and calls an assembly. I'm not even sure, but this is just an assembly of the chiefs, the leaders. Maybe Agamemnon. That detail doesn't matter much. Anyway, the big chiefs come to Agamemnon's home, and they decide that they need to do something to restore spirits, to lift spirits. So Agamemnon offers or suggests that maybe someone might be willing to sneak, to creep into the Trojan camp to try to get some information. Now, I don't remember whether I told you this or not, but the Trojans are feeling very confident about things. So confident that they, instead of returning to the city that night, and instead of sleeping at Troy, they have camped out on the plain. I think I told you, I think I told you that at the end of book 7, book 7 and 8, the Greeks had built a wall, erected a wall to protect their ships somewhere along the coast. It must be huge, 50,000 men, 1,000 ships. They had erected a wall and a ditch with spikes in the ditch to prevent horses from crossing it. A pretty elaborate thing. It seems like a flaw to me in the Iliad, but it doesn't really matter much. They are said to have done this overnight. Well, I don't know what wall, what vast wall could have been erected overnight, one night, but that's what Homer says. Anyway, that's not too terrible. The wall is there, with a gate, a very elaborate thing. Anyway, Hector, under the leadership of Hector, the Trojans have decided to spend the night out there right on the plain. They build fires and sleep near the fires. All this because Hector hopes to burn the Greek ships, kill the Greeks, or force them to leave that very next day. Now, until now we have liked Hector, and Hector is still pretty likable, but Hector is going to diminish. Our affection for him is going to be reduced, going to be diminished over the next few books, only to be restored again in book 22. Anyway, in English we have the verb to hector. To hector is to bully and to brag, to boast. And we say that someone is hectoring, that is boasting. I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. That's hectoring. That's not very fair to Hector, certainly not fair to the Hector of book 6 or of book 22, but alas, it is fair to Hector in books about 10 through 21. He's a foolish man. The Greeks, and after them the Romans had a saying, really based pretty much on what happens to Hector, though it happens to other heroes too later, but it happens to them because Homer did this to Hector. And the saying is that he whom, let's see, maybe Latin, quem Jupiter perdere dementatat. All right. He whom Jupiter, Zeus, intends to destroy, first he takes away their wits and makes them act crazy. And Hector is a little out of his mind during this time. Anyway, out on the plain, the Trojans are led by Hector. Among the Greeks then, the chiefs, Diomedes, the youngest of the chiefs, but the bold, fiery Diomedes, very likable in some ways, volunteers. He will go into the camp himself to get information. Now he's the same one at the end who, at the end of the previous book, was so fiery, so impatient with Agamemnon, who was disheartened and sick at the failure of the embassy. Diomedes will go there, but he doesn't want to go alone. He needs someone to help him watch and help him. Agamemnon says, choose choose whomever you wish. And Diomedes says, this is impressive too. Diomedes says, well, if I can choose, I don't hesitate. I choose Odysseus. Athena loves him. Now we know already that Athena loves Diomedes. Athena had helped him directly, given him eyes, even enabled him to see gods, so that he stabbed Ares in the stomach. He cut Aphrodite on the wrist. Athena loves Diomedes, loves his fiery spirit, I think. But the human being whom she loves the most, no question, is Odysseus. The whole Odyssey is based on that idea. The Odyssey really is about Athena's protection of, love of Odysseus. And we could draw a theme from that. But ultimately, that's what happens in the whole Odyssey. Okay, so the two of them get ready and they go out into the night. They cross through their wall. They go into they're going across no man's land, where there are many dead bodies still lying on the plain from the battle of the previous day and days even. Now, meanwhile, in the Trojan camp, the Trojans have called an assembly too, Hector. There something similar yet different happens. Hector says to the gathered people, many of whom are his allies, that is, people who are not Trojans but have come to fight for the Trojans but are being paid. There among them it's money. Now the Greeks like money too, but the Greeks aren't there for money. Maybe they hope to take some of the treasures of Troy eventually, but still their primary motivation can't be said to be money. What it is we'll discuss sometime, and that's complex, I think. But among the allies of the Trojans, it's true they like glory, it's true they like fighting this great war, but King Priam is paying them. So Hector says, okay, I want to volunteer, please. Who will go into the Greek camp to spy on them and try to find out what they're doing or what they plan to do? The person who is willing to do this will receive great gifts, gold, horses, golden horses. Dolan, a young man, rises up. He's a very fast runner. Not a very good fighter, but a very fast runner. He'll do it. He wants that gold. He wants those horses. So, off he goes toward the Greek camp. Meanwhile, Diomedes and Odysseus are coming from the Greek camp. Now, Dolan is not very attentive, but Odysseus is. And Odysseus hears something in the night. It's night in this no man's land, dead bodies and things around. And Odysseus says to Diomedes, quick, lie down. Pretend that you're dead. I think someone is coming. We will let this person get past us. Then we'll stand up and prevent him thus from going back. That Odysseus, always clever. They lie down. Dolan notices nothing, passes them. Odysseus and Diomedes stand up. Dolan tries to run. He's fast, but they're pretty fast too. As you'll see, both of them are very fast. Odysseus is the fastest. He's amazing, as you'll see in book 23, even though he's an older man. Anyway, Dolan tries to escape, doesn't. They capture him. Dolan says, spare me, my father has a lot of money, ransom me, and you'll get rich. Okay, says Odysseus, tell us all you know. Why are you here? Well, Hector sent me to spy. What is happening? Well, a new group of allies has come from Thrace, Thrace, under the leadership of King Rhesus. He has a golden chariot and some great horses. Any other news? No. Now let me go. I'm not going to let you go. Odysseus kills him on the spot. He never promised to save his life, though he implied it. But, of course, he's not a fool. He can't let him go. Dolan is dead. They strip his armor, as they like to do, they set the armor on a little tree, a tamarisk tree out there in the plain. How many trees could there be? Not many. But they put it on there so that they can find it quickly and pick it up. Then they continue into the Trojan camp. They go straight for the new Thracian encampment. Everyone's sleeping, of course. And they start to cut throats. Cut men's throats in their sleep. It's pretty terrible, but of course that's what war is. If I don't cut his throat tonight, he might cut mine tomorrow. So they do it efficiently and quickly. I imagine they kill at least 20, maybe more. Then they go for that golden chariot. They hitch up the horses. Athena keeps everything silent, helps them, says Homer. When they finish attaching the horse to the chariot, they get on the chariot and they take off. Ha, 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 ha. Of course, everybody wakes up, but it's too late. These men are riding fast out of camp toward the Greek camp. They ride across the plain. They don't forget to pick up Dolan's armor from the tamarisk tree. And they return just as dawn is approaching to the Greek camp. The men open the gates, the big gates. In ride our heroes. Well, this is just perfect for the Greeks. This is just what Agamemnon and the Greeks needed. That is something to lift their spirits, to return their pride to them. Wonderful. Great shift after book 11. Now, after book 9. Now, in book 11, one important thing happens, and I'm going to be able to skip many things with a quick summary for about 8 books, and that's how we'll finish. But I would skip those books anyway. Not much there. In book 11, though, the battle resumes, the battle begins again, and the most important thing that happens is, out there on the plain, Machaon is the doctor, the physician of the Greeks. Machaon is injured. Nestor, the old man Nestor, picks him up, puts him on his chariot, and, well, no, that's not quite true. It's a minor injury. Nestor doesn't pick him up, but Nestor says, Machaon says, Nestor, drive me back, please, I'm hurt. So Nestor puts him on his chariot and drives him back to the Greek camp. Now, Achilles is standing, as he's often standing, outside his encampment, in his leisure, where he's not fighting, of course, and he happens to see Nestor from a great distance riding at some speed out of the battle back to the Greek camp. And he calls his friend Patroclus. Patroclus is somewhat older than him, about 10 years. I told you he's kind of a guardian, kind of a friend. And Homer says, a famous little line, and this was the beginning of the evil for Achilles. Well, that's not quite true. The evil began before. The evil began a long time ago, in a sense, because you can always trace it back. But certainly this is a disaster. We remember in Book 9 that it's now Achilles' fault that he's out of the fighting. Agamemnon had offered him, as the cliché goes, word cliché, a king's ransom, a vast treasure, and Achilles had refused it. It's now Achilles' fault that he's not fighting. The blame is on his shoulders, and terrible things will happen. Okay, Patroclus, friend of my soul, come here, please. Run to see Nestor and Machaon. Nestor, find out who that man is whom Nestor is carrying out of the battle, and come and tell me, okay? Okay. Patroclus runs. He arrives at the tent, or the hut, I guess it's Nestor's hut, and he enters. Nestor, who's that you brought out? Oh, it's you, Machaon. Nestor complains, yes, things are going badly, that Achilles, you must persuade him to rejoin us. Yes, yes, yes. And Homer leaves them there. Patroclus stays there. Patroclus will return to Achilles in book 16, early in book 16. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. During all that time, Patroclus remains in Nestor's hut, talking apparently. Meanwhile, we return to the battle. Oh, no, wait, I better finish that, because now Nestor has some advice. Patroclus, if Achilles will not return to the battle and help us, at least you, Patroclus, borrow Achilles' armor and enter the fighting. Because when the Trojans see Achilles' armor, they will run. And this will be a big help to us. It will relieve the pressure. It will help us tremendously. He suggests it, but we get no reply from Patroclus in book 11. But we know it's going to happen. Book 12, I think, 14. Battle. In the Homeric battles, now they're fighting this way, now they're fighting this way. Homer, after all, has to keep the battle going, but can't let anything too big happen. Maybe some minor character is killed, and the Greeks and Trojans fight for his armor, because that's a big deal. Someone is wounded, a god does something, but really nothing much happens. Battle, battle, battle. Homer can't let anything very important happen. Okay, this is what happens during 12, 13, and 14. In 14, I think I have the book right. It could even be 12, but it doesn't really matter. It's nightfall again, and the Trojans assemble to meet, and a brother of Hector, Helenus, who is also a prophet, says, brother, no, not Helenus, Polydamas, doesn't matter, another brother, not so much a prophet, says, brother, we should go back to the city. It's too dangerous to stay out here on the plain. Hector says, nonsense. He says, I am going to take Troy tomorrow. I am going to burn the ships. Well, this kind of arrogance no one likes. Homer didn't like it. The gods allegedly don't like it either. When a man boasts like that, we know that his destruction is near. And that's what I meant before, but throughout these books. Before, when I said, when I told you that Latin saying, his wits are not fully with him, because that's a stupid thing to do. It's a stupid thing for anyone to do any time, for that matter. To boast about what one is going to do is such nonsense. A much better attitude is that life is full of uncertainty, and I'm going to try, the gods willing, or God willing, I'm going to try to achieve something or something. And it's much more becoming, too, of course. Okay, so Hector boasts, and they stay, and it's a disaster. A disastrous decision, which he should not have made. And he regrets it later. Let's go to book 16. Early in book 16, Patroclus finally leaves Nestor, returns to Achilles, and he returns in tears. He weeps. Achilles, hard heart, return to the battle. Our friends, the Greeks, are wounded. They're in bad things are happening to them. We must help them. If you won't help them, at least lend me your armor so that I can go out there, and when the Trojans see your armor, they will run away, and that will help our friends. Achilles says, I don't like this, but I'm still angry. I'm still so angry at Agamemnon. Okay, borrow my armor, go out there, but you must promise me that you will not try to kill Hector, you will not try to take Troy. Even I, says Achilles, am not going to take Troy. I know I'm not. I'm going to die before Troy is taken. My mother has told me that, and I feel it in my heart. So you must promise. I promise. Patroclus puts on the armor, gathers some men too, and Achilles, just because he's Achilles, goes out outside the encampment again, and he screams his warrior scream. All the warriors had this scream, kind of like Indian braves on cowboy and Indian movies. He screams his warrior scream, and the Trojans hear it, and they start to retreat. Just at the sound of Achilles' voice, so terrified are they all of him. Okay. Book 16, then Patroclus goes out there, and he starts killing men. Everyone's running. It's easy to kill them. Patroclus is a pretty good fighter, but he's not this good. They are all running away from him. They're running away from Achilles' armor. He kills many men, non-entities, unimportant men, but he does kill one important man, and that's Sarpedon. Sarpedon, one of the allies, he's a Lycian, Lycian, just one of Troy's allies, is a son of Zeus. And so this is a moving moment. Zeus is watching, and he knows it's going to happen. Nevertheless, he pulls out his golden scales, the golden scales that tell him clearly whether a person is fated to die at that moment or not. And the scale goes heavily down for Sarpedon. And he loves Sarpedon. Sarpedon is not a famous guy, but he loves his son, and he is tempted, this is interesting, to intervene and try to save his son. Hera, the wife, the somewhat nagging, but understandably nagging wife of Zeus, says, okay, Zeus, you can do this if you want. You have the power. But if you do this, other gods will start doing this too for their children, and there will be chaos. And fate will not like this either. Fate is never personified, interestingly, but the fates are, but that's a minor thing, really. So I advise you not to do this, my husband. Zeus knows she's right. Okay,